Injuries. WWE typically has a lot of them, although things aren't so bad at the moment, primarily because the company isn't touring. When you're not on the road as often, you have less wear and tear, and critically, more time to recover from those little aches and pains. Now, the list is never going to be terribly short in WWE because they employ something like 260 wrestlers. Of course, some of them are going to be injured at the same time. And wrestling, let's not forget, is an inherently dangerous game. You could swap that wrestling ring for a bouncy castle, but people are still going to get hurt. So today, what we're going to do is take a quick run through WWE's entire injury list and take a stab at when some of these performers might return to the ring. So with that in mind, I'm Andy from What Culture Wrestling, and here are 13 injured WWE stars and when they're set to return. Number 13, Simone Johnson. I don't really know if the word return is appropriate here because Simone Johnson hasn't formally debuted in the ring or on screen as a named personality. However, she was part of those weird Performance Center crowds that WWE lined up for Raw and SmackDown last summer. So I guess she kind of counts anyway. The Rock's daughter actually came to WWE shortly after hurting her knee. She revealed this in an interview shortly after signing, saying that it cost her a spot at NYU, or she didn't want to travel to New York, and she opted to stay in Orlando and become a pro wrestler instead. Well, unfortunately, that knee has proved problematic. In September, Simone revealed that she was going under the knife for surgery on it for the third time. It sounds like that thing's pretty damn jacked up. Now, the unfortunate thing is that I'm starting this list off with an entry where I can't give you a return date because there's been no word on how her recovery is going, but hopefully well, and hopefully we can see her on screen soon. Returning? Unknown. Number 12, KAVITA DEVI. KAVITA DEVI has had quite a weird WWE career. She is the company's undisputed queen of YouTube, having racked up a whopping 61 million viewers for her first round match in the 2017 Mae Young Classic against Dakota Kai. That's nuts! But her career has kind of stalled since then. She was in the Mae Young Classic the following year as well, but never really transitioned into a regular TV role. Now, her last televised match went down in July 2019. The following month, it was reported that she had suffered a torn ACL. Torn ACLs are nothing to mess with, as we'll cover throughout the duration of this video. They typically come with a recovery time of around 6 to 9 months, but there's still been no sign of Devi on WWE TV again. Now, we should say that she was scheduled to appear at Superstar Spectacle, the WWE show designed to highlight its up-and-coming Indian-born talent that went down in January. But she couldn't make it due to family reasons. So as things stand, we don't have a concrete return date for Devi, but it may be sooner rather than later. Returning? Unknown, but hopefully soon. Number 11, Ridge Holland. Now here's a guy who seemed to have the world at his feet when he came onto NXT television just last year. It was reported that WWE had big plans for the former pro rugby player, and that Ridge Holland was on his way to the top. And on his way to the top he may have been, until he tried to catch an Oni Lorcan dive to the outside on NXT television in October 2020, and his leg basically turned to jelly. It was gross. It was seriously gross. Now I'm just going to read the things that happened to Ridge Holland's leg here because they really suck, poor guy. He suffered a dislocated ankle, a broken ankle, a dislocated kneecap, and a ruptured patella. It's safe to say that that leg was all the way messed up. But the good news is that his return isn't too far away. According to the Englishman, earlier this year, he was told initially that he faced around 6 to 9 months on the sidelines. That means that by my calculation, he'll be returning within the next 3 months, provided all went well. Number 10, Wild Boar. It's hard to give you an accurate summary of where Wild Boar might be in his recovery because there haven't been many reports on his status since he went down with an ACL problem in January. He was on NXT UK TV as recently as March, but then he was being dragged away from behind a cage into the shadows at the behest of Eddie Dennis, who might have had him killed. I'm not sure. It felt like at least a temporary write-off at the very least. So, returning, unfortunately, unknown. Number 9, Arturo RUAS. This guy has had a really interesting career trajectory over the past year or so. He was on Raw Underground, and when Raw Underground got canned, well, WWE drafted him to Raw. You're thinking, okay, cool, this guy's gonna be a main roster guy going forward. But no, they threw him back down to NXT like the next week or something, very soon afterwards. He had one more match on NXT television that November, wrestling Kushida, in which he was injured. The Brazilian underwent surgery on his arm injury in December, and we're still awaiting an update on when he might be back. Returning, sorry guys, unknown. Number 8, Curt Stallion. This former Evolve and general all-round independent standout was on a nice little roll in WWE. He was on 205 Live pretty much every week, and even had a few brushes on NXT with the former Cruiserweight champion, Santos Escobar. But, as it often does, at the worst possible moment, the injury bug came along and said, "Hello, Curt Stallion, up yours." The guy suffered a fractured wrist in March. Now these things are tricky, the return time is extremely variable. We know that Stallion has had surgery, he's had some screws and some metal bits and other Inspector Gadget things inserted into his wrist, but he could be on the shelf for up to 6 months. That is the upper level of time out that people typically take from a severe wrist fracture. So with that in mind, returning late summer or potentially early fall. Number 7, Kona Reeves. Here's another guy who hasn't really wrestled since before the pandemic. His reason is because he was injured. So he suffered some kind of shoulder problem. The way he described it on Dan Mappa's podcast made it sound like a separation or a dislocation. He confirmed on the podcast, Reeves did, that he's had around 5 anchors put in there, which sounds mighty painful. Anyway, the guy obviously hasn't returned to television as of yet, but he did claim earlier this year that he was training to do so. So, while his return period is kind of unknown, I'm confident enough to say that returning relatively soon. Number 6, Riddick Moss. This guy is hard as hell. Why do I say that? Because he revealed in October that he'd actually been wrestling with a torn ACL for 2 whole months. According to Moss on Instagram, he underwent surgery for this around about the same time the Raw Underground was canned. That was October kind of time period. Torn ACLs usually mean around 6 to 9 months on the sidelines. That means that his return actually isn't all that far away. So we'll say returning within the next 2 to 3 months. Number 5, Bobby Fish. And you know, he's one of the bigger names on this list, but also one of the more, I guess, cloudy situations on this list. Fish was injured in November last year. He wrestled at War Games, continued to work through it, and he was only supposed to miss like a couple of months. He'd be back early in the year, apparently, but he's missed the entire implosion of the Undisputed Era. He's missed Kyle O'Reilly versus Adam Cole. Roderick Strong's been involved in that. Bobby Fish has not been brought back. It's a total mystery. Hope he's doing okay. Hope he's recovering, but until then, returning unknown. Number 4, Danny Burch. This one really sucks for poor old Danny Burch and Oney Lorcan, who were reigning as NXT Tag Team Champions before Burch was hurt while wrestling Finn Balor and Karrion Kross earlier this year. Separated his shoulder, the poor guy, meaning that him and Lorcan had to vacate the NXT Tag Team titles. It was announced on the following week's episode of NXT in March by Vic Joseph that Burch would be on the sidelines for 6 months. He's undergone the surgery, he's recovering now, but he's not going to be back for a while. Returning September. Number 3, Tegan Knox. And this one is the most depressing of all because very few wrestlers in WWE history have ever had the kind of injury problems that Tegan Knox has had in such a condensed period of time, let alone tearing their ACL 3 times in, 4 years? Knox first tore her ACL prior to the 2017 Mae Young Classic. Then, in the 2018 tournament itself, she tore it again along with a whole host of other knee problems, a really horrific injury. But she showed great spirit and great determination to battle back and get in the ring and find her form again, only to be injured once more, another ACL tear in 2020. The latest update we have on Tegan's situation came in January when she said she was off crutches, she was moving about and seemingly doing a whole lot better. There's no word on when she might return to the ring, but hopefully it'll be soon, and hopefully that joint will be rebuilt and healed and everything else. She deserves a really good run in WWE. We've seen some great things from her so far. It's just a shame that the injuries have gotten in the way. So with that in mind, returning, hopefully soon. Hopefully. Number 2, Jason Jordan. It's a real simple one, this. Jason Jordan's probably never gonna wrestle again. And it sucks. He had to retire at just 29 years old. Serious neck injury. It looked like he was rising. He was about to find new life as a heel after the Kurt Angle storyline. He was teaming and annoying Seth Rollins. It was good stuff. And then disaster struck. The silver lining to this, or, you know, they've taken the situation and made lemonades, WWE and Jordan have, because he's now been elevated. He is a senior producer in the company. This was announced just a few days ago. He's been promoted. He took up production after finding himself on the sidelines in the first place. So while he may never wrestle again, he's got a career probably for life in this company, and that's a good thing. That's nice to know. Returning? Probably never. And at number 1, Keith Lee. This is a weird situation. Keith Lee was pulled from the 2021 Royal Rumble pay-per-view, returned to television, had to go away again, was pulled from Elimination Chamber where he was supposed to win the US title. That belt went to Riddle, and we've still not seen anything from Keith since then. Now, there has been a report from Fightful Select stating that he is off television due to a medical issue. That has not been disclosed. It's his business to come out with that if he wants to, but he's been on social media talking about how he's eager to get back and tell his story and everything else. Sounds like Keith Lee will be back on our screens at some point. When exactly is a complete mystery. Just hope that whatever ails him isn't too serious and that he's able to mount a full recovery. Returning? Unknown. So that's it, guys. We've taken our journey through the WWE medical room, spied on the walking wounded, and tried to forecast when they'll be back. Let us know in the comment section below when you hope to see these people back and what you want to see them do when they're on your screens again. After that, you can like, share, subscribe, hit the bell for notifications, follow us on Twitter at WhatCultureWWE and myself at Andy H. Murray, where you can tell me how wrong I am. Toodle pip.